It was raining the night I first noticed the light. Not heavy rain, the quiet kind that feels endless. The kind that taps gently against windows and makes the city sound far away even when you're surrounded by traffic. I had just moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of an old building downtown. The place wasn't much, but it was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask many questions. After a rough breakup and a rushed move, I wanted something simple, something quiet. The building faced a narrow alley. On the opposite side of that alley was another apartment complex, older than mine, with peeling paint and windows that didn't quite line up. Most nights, only a few lights were on across the way. But that first night, one window stood out. Third floor, directly across from my bedroom. A soft yellow glow spilled through thin curtains. I noticed it because everything else was dark. I told myself someone had probably just moved in, same as me. I made tea, unpacked a few boxes, and tried to ignore how empty my apartment felt. Around midnight, the rain picked up. I crawled into bed and scrolled through my phone until sleep finally pulled me under. I woke up sometime after 2. Not suddenly, slowly. That half-awake state where you don't know what pulled you out of sleep. The rain was still falling. My bedroom was dark except for the faint glow coming through the blinds. The window across the alley was still lit. I rolled onto my side, facing it. At first, I just stared, letting my eyes adjust. Then I noticed movement behind the curtains. A shadow passed slowly across the light. Someone was walking inside that apartment. I didn't think much of it. People wake up at night, use the bathroom, get water. But something about the way the shadow moved made my stomach tighten. It wasn't natural. It didn't have the rhythm of footsteps. It glided, like someone sliding rather than walking. The shadow disappeared. The light remained on. I turned away and tried to fall back asleep. I woke again at 3:17 a.m. I know the time because I checked my phone. The light across the alley was still on. Rain streaked down my window in thin lines, warping the view. And this time, someone was standing directly in front of it. I could only see their outline. Tall, very thin. They weren't moving, just standing there, facing my building. Facing me. I sat up in bed. My heart began to beat harder. I told myself they couldn't possibly see me through the rain and blinds. Still, I shifted slightly, trying to get a clearer look. The figure didn't move. They didn't raise a hand, didn't turn, didn't blink. After about 30 seconds, they stepped backward, slowly fading into the shadows of the room. The curtains remained slightly parted. The light stayed on. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I asked the barista downstairs if she knew who lived in the building across the alley. She frowned. "Most of it's empty," she said. "Been that way for years." I laughed nervously. "That can't be right. Someone was up all night with their lights on." She shook her head. "Only one unit's occupied. First floor." I pointed toward my apartment window. It was the third floor. Her expression changed. "That's strange." I spent the rest of the day trying to rationalize it. Maybe squatters, maybe renovation crews. Maybe she was mistaken. That night it rained again, and when darkness fell, the same third-floor window lit up. This time I watched it from my couch. Hours passed. No movement. Just that soft yellow glow. Around midnight my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. A minute later, another buzz. Same number. I answered. "Hello?"
There was breathing on the line. Slow. Wet. Like someone holding the phone too close to their mouth. I pulled it away from my ear. "Who is this?" The breathing stopped. Then a voice whispered, "You can see me." My blood ran cold. I stood and walked slowly toward my window. Rain blurred everything, but the light across the alley burned steadily. And standing in front of it was the same thin figure. Only now, it had lifted its head, and I knew, somehow, that it was smiling.
I dropped the phone. It hit the carpet with a soft thud, but I barely noticed. All my attention was locked on the figure across the alley. Even through rain and distance, I could tell something was wrong with the way it stood. Its shoulders were too narrow, its arms hung too long, and its head tilted at an angle that made my neck ache just looking at it. The light behind it flickered once, twice, then stabilized. I backed away from the window, slowly. My apartment felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had moved closer together while I wasn't paying attention. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and tried calling a friend. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. No signal. The rain outside grew louder, pounding against the glass like fingertips. I grabbed my jacket and keys. I didn't care if I looked ridiculous running out into the storm. I just wanted out. As I reached for the door, my phone vibrated. A text message from the unknown number. "Don't leave." I froze. Another message came through. "You invited me when you looked." My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't invited anything. I turned slowly back toward the window. The light across the alley was gone. The apartment opposite was dark. My stomach twisted. I moved closer to the glass. The curtains across the alley were now fully open. The room inside was empty. No furniture, no decorations, just bare walls. Then I saw movement in my own reflection. Something tall stood behind me. I spun around. Nothing. My apartment was empty, but the reflection in the window didn't match what I saw. Behind my reflected body was a darker shape. Its outline blurred, like it didn't fully exist in this space. My phone vibrated again. "You're closer now." I ran for the door. The handle wouldn't turn. I twisted harder. Nothing. The deadbolt clicked on its own. Behind me, the air grew colder. I could feel breath against the back of my neck. Not warm, not cold, just empty. "You don't have to be afraid," a voice whispered, inches from my ear. It sounded like it was still learning how to speak. "I only cross when someone notices." My lights flickered. The rain outside slowed. Every sound felt muted, like I was underwater. I felt pressure behind my eyes. Memories began slipping, small things at first. Where I put my keys, my neighbor's name. Then bigger things, my old address, my mother's voice. I turned toward it. I shouldn't have. It stood between me and the hallway. Up close, it didn't have a face, just a smooth surface where features should be, gently rippling like water. Its limbs bent in places joints shouldn't exist. "You made room for me," it said softly. I screamed and threw my phone at it. The device passed through its body and shattered against the wall. That moment of distraction was enough. I rushed past it and slammed my shoulder into the door. The lock gave way with a sharp crack. Cold rain air rushed in as I stumbled into the hallway. I didn't look back. I ran down 3 flights of stairs barefoot, burst through the lobby, and didn't stop until I reached the street. I stood in the rain, shaking, gasping, waiting for something to follow. Nothing did. The next day I returned with a police officer. My apartment showed no signs of forced entry. No broken lock. No damage. The building across the alley was condemned. Third floor completely sealed. No power. No wiring. The officer told me no one had lived there for over 10 years. I moved out that week. But sometimes, on rainy nights, I still wake up around 3 in the morning. And when I check my phone, there's always a missed call from an unknown number. No voicemail. Just the quiet certainty that something remembers being seen. It started with a voicemail. Not a missed call. Not a notification. A voicemail that appeared on my phone sometime after midnight, while rain pressed steadily against the windows of my apartment. I didn't notice it until morning. The timestamp said 2:46 a.m. There was no number attached to it, just unknown caller. I played it while brushing my teeth. At first, there was only static, then rain. Heavy rainfall, louder than the rain outside my own window. After that came breathing. Slow. Careful. Then my voice. Hello? I froze. To be clear, I live alone. No roommates, no smart assistants, no recordings of myself stored on that phone. Yet there it was. My own voice, sounding tired and distant, like I'd been speaking from the bottom of a well. Then something else whispered beneath it, so quietly I almost missed it. You answered. I dropped my toothbrush. I replayed the voicemail 3 times. The same sounds played back every time. Rain, breathing, my voice. That whisper. I checked my call log. There was no incoming call at 2:46 a.m. I told myself it was some kind of glitch. Phones do strange things. Networks cross signals. Audio gets corrupted. That explanation lasted until the next night. It was raining again. Not a storm, just steady, patient rainfall that made the city feel hollow. I was lying on my couch, scrolling through my phone when it rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Silence. Then breathing, exactly like the voicemail. Who is this? I asked. Rain crackled faintly through the speaker. Then my voice answered back. I'm downstairs. My stomach tightened. I don't have a downstairs, I said. I lived on the first floor. The call ended. My doorbell rang immediately after. One soft chime. I stood slowly, walked to the door, looked through the peephole. No one was there. The hallway outside was empty, but the carpet was wet. Dark footprints led away from my door. Bare footprints. They stopped halfway down the hall. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked a building manager if anyone had reported strange activity. She said no. She also told me something that didn't help. 2 tenants had moved out suddenly in the past month, both from my floor, both without giving notice. That night, the voicemail app opened itself on my phone. A new message appeared. Timestamp, 3:12 a.m. I hadn't heard the phone ring. I pressed play. This time there was no rain, just breathing. Then a soft sound, like fingers brushing fabric. Then my voice again. I can hear it walking. My lights flickered. The temperature in my apartment dropped sharply. And from the bathroom, I heard something drip. Slow. Wet. Deliberate. I stood frozen in the middle of my living room, staring at the bathroom door. The dripping sound continued. Slow. Measured. Each drop echoed softly through the apartment. My phone vibrated in my hand. Another voicemail notification. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct told me not to. but I did anyway. Static, breathing. Then my voice whispered, "It's in the hallway." I spun toward my front door. Nothing. But the wet footprints had returned. Fresh. They led from my door toward the bathroom. I backed away slowly. The air felt thick, like breathing through fog. The lights flickered again. This time, they stayed dim. I grabbed the heaviest thing near me, a wooden chair, and held it like a weapon. "Who's there?" I shouted. My voice sounded small. The dripping stopped. Silence followed. Then footsteps. Bare feet on tile. Soft. Careful. They moved from the bathroom toward me. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel something approaching. The temperature dropped another degree. My breath fogged. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. "I told you not to leave," my voice said calmly. "I never left," I whispered. "You did," it replied, "when you listened." The hallway mirror darkened, not shattered, not cracked. Darkened, like someone had poured ink over its surface. A shape formed inside the reflection. Tall, thin, wrong. Its outline rippled, refusing to hold a steady shape. "You hear us better in the rain," it said. I felt pressure behind my eyes. Memories began slipping. Simple things first. Passwords, addresses, my sister's birthday. I screamed and threw the chair at the mirror. It passed through the glass like smoke. The mirror swallowed it. The shape stepped forward. Its body emerged from the reflection. Water poured off it. Not rain. Something thicker. The smell of damp earth filled the room. It tilted its head. "You answered twice," it said. "That's enough." My phone vibrated violently. Every voicemail played at once. My voice filled the apartment from every direction. I covered my ears and ran. I burst through the front door and down the hallway, slipping on wet carpet, nearly falling on the stairs. I didn't stop until I reached the street. Rain soaked me instantly. Cars passed without slowing. I must have looked insane, barefoot and shaking in the storm. I stayed with a friend that night. The next day I returned with police. My apartment was dry. No footprints, no dripping, no mirror damage. The building manager said my unit's water had been shut off overnight for maintenance. There were no voicemail records on my phone, no missed calls, nothing. I moved out 2 days later. But sometimes, when it rains hard enough, my phone vibrates in my pocket. No notification, no call, just a soft buzz. And I remember what it said. "You hear us better in the rain." Story 3. I bought the house in early spring, when the rain still smelled like cold dirt and new grass. It was a small place on the outskirts of town, tucked between a wooded lot and an abandoned service road. The listing described it as quiet and private, which was exactly what I wanted after a difficult year. Divorce, job change, too many nights spent staring at ceilings. The house had one strange feature. There were no neighboring buildings close enough to see from any window. Just trees and rain. The first few weeks were peaceful. I unpacked slowly, painted the spare room, learned the way the floors creaked at night. I noticed early on that the rain sounded louder here than anywhere else I'd lived. It drummed against the roof and windows with unusual clarity, as if the house amplified it. I told myself it was just the way sound traveled through older walls. The first strange thing happened during my second week. I was washing dishes when I heard someone knock. 3 soft taps on the front door. I dried my hands and went to answer. No one was there. The porch was wet,
Footprints led away from the door. Bare footprints. They disappeared at the edge of the driveway. I assumed a prank. That night I dreamed of someone standing in my hallway, listening. I woke to rain and silence. On the third week, the house began repeating sounds, not echoes, repetitions. I would cough, and a moment later, something deeper in the walls would cough back. I would close a door, and seconds later I'd hear the same sound from another room. Once, I dropped a glass in the kitchen. It shattered loudly. A few moments later, the sound of breaking glass came from upstairs. There was nothing broken up there. I stopped using the guest room, stopped walking around after dark. Then the rainstorms grew heavier. The knocking returned. Always 3 taps, always after midnight. When I finally answered on the 4th night, I found a yellow sticky note on the porch. It had one word written on it. Listen. That evening, the power flickered. The house went quiet in a way that felt wrong. Even the rain outside seemed muted. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. There was rain on the line, breathing. Then a voice whispered, "You're inside now." The floor creaked behind me. Something moved through the hallway. And from somewhere deep inside the walls, I heard my own footsteps walking.
I didn't move right away. I stood in the kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to rain that didn't belong to my house. The call had already ended, but the sound stayed. Soft rainfall continued to play from the dead line for several seconds before cutting off completely. My screen went black. Behind me, the floor creaked. Not randomly, not from settling wood. It was the careful sound of weight being transferred from one foot to another. I turned slowly. The hallway was empty, but something had shifted. The air felt heavier, thicker, like humidity without warmth. My ears popped slightly, the way they do when pressure changes. I took a step backward. The hallway light flickered, then stabilized. The house was listening. I don't know why that thought came to me so clearly, but once it did, I couldn't shake it. I walked toward the hallway. Every instinct screamed not to. The rain outside intensified, drumming harder against the roof and windows. It sounded amplified now, like the house was pulling it inward. I reached the doorway. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The walls looked farther apart. The shadows at the far end moved slightly, even though nothing else did. "Hello?" I called. My voice sounded wrong in that space. It echoed twice, not once. Twice. The second echo came from behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the sound of my own voice repeated quietly from the living room, delayed by half a second. I backed away until my shoulders hit the kitchen counter. My phone vibrated. No notification, just vibration. Again. And again. I unlocked it. 3 missed calls. Unknown number. All within the last minute. A new voicemail appeared while I watched. Timestamp, now. I pressed play. At first, there was silence. Then breathing. Then rain. Then my own voice whispered, "Don't let it hear you thinking." My chest tightened. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and continued playing. I could hear myself breathing through the speaker. Not live, recorded. The hallway light went out. Only moonlight filtered through the living room window now, casting pale blue shadows across the floor. Something moved at the far end of the hall, not stepping forward, unfolding. A tall shape emerged slowly from the darkness, as if peeling itself away from the walls. Its body didn't reflect light correctly, edges blurred, limbs extended too far.
It had no defined face, just a smooth surface that shifted faintly like water under skin. It tilted its head. The house creaked in response. "You make so much noise," it said softly. Its voice wasn't male or female. It sounded like layered recordings trying to agree on a tone. "I live here," I whispered. The thing's head tilted farther. "No," it replied. "You arrived here." The difference felt important. The temperature dropped suddenly. My breath fogged. Condensation crept across the windows. "You knock," it continued. "You walk. You speak. You fill the space." It lifted one elongated arm. The walls groaned. "Then the space remembers you." I ran. I didn't think. I just moved. I bolted toward the front door. Behind me, I heard movement. Not footsteps, but the sound of walls flexing, of something sliding through rooms without needing hallways. I grabbed the handle and twisted. Locked. I hadn't locked it. I slammed my shoulder against the door. Nothing. My phone vibrated violently in my pocket. I didn't check it. I ran upstairs. The stairs felt longer. The second-floor hallway stretched like rubber. Doors appeared where there hadn't been doors before. Every room sounded occupied, breathing behind closed frames, soft tapping inside walls. I ducked into the bathroom and locked myself inside. The mirror above the sink had darkened, not cracked, not fogged. Darkened, like black water filling glass. My reflection wavered, then delayed. I raised my hand. My reflection followed a second later. The rain on the roof stopped abruptly. Silence pressed in. Then my voice spoke from the mirror. "You shouldn't have listened." The surface rippled. Something pushed from the other side, not breaking through. Testing. The door handle rattled, once, twice.
Then stopped. I slid down against the tub, pulling my knees to my chest, trying not to breathe too loudly. The walls began repeating sounds from earlier. The dishwater running, my cough, the glass breaking, my footsteps. All layered together, looping in slow, distorted cycles. Time felt unstable. Minutes stretched. Thoughts slipped. I couldn't remember my sister's name. I couldn't remember my old address. I couldn't remember how long I'd lived here. "You let it hear you," the voice said gently from everywhere. "And now it knows your shape." Pressure built behind my eyes. Memories blurred. I felt myself becoming thin, hollowed out from the inside. Something slid beneath the bathroom door. Not a limb. A shadow. It spread across the tile and began climbing the walls. I screamed. The sound came back to me from every direction. The mirror bulged outward. The shadow thickened. And then, my phone rang. Not inside the house. Outside, through the bathroom window. A normal ringtone. Sharp. Real. I lunged for the window, threw it open, and climbed out barefoot into the rain. I fell into wet grass, rolled, scraped my hands on gravel, and didn't stop moving until I reached my car. The engine started on the first try. I drove through rain and darkness without knowing where I was going. I spent the night in a hospital parking lot. In the morning, I returned with police. The house looked normal, dry, warm. No damage, no condensation, no locked doors, no voicemail records, no unknown calls. They suggested stress, isolation, sleep deprivation. I sold the house 3 weeks later. The new owners moved in during summer. I checked online recently. The listing is gone. The property shows no current residents. Sometimes, when it rains hard enough, I hear 3 soft taps on my apartment door. I never answer.
Because houses remember sounds, and some spaces learn how to listen.